There are so many reasons why it's important to protect the coast. So not only is it a place that 2.5 million people live nearby, but this is also the space that we play, we relax, we recreate, go fishing, go swimming, all these things that we enjoy about the coast. Since colonization and sort of Western civilization came to this area, people really relied on what we call gray or traditional infrastructure. And so these are things like revetments, seawalls. How can we harden the shoreline to protect what we really want? And that's not really responsive to how the shoreline really is. So now as we've learned and developed and also taken much more advice and input from indigenous ecological knowledge, we're looking towards what we call nature-based approaches. So how can we engineer and work with natural systems to protect these areas, allow them to adapt in a more sustainable way? So that's something like here we have what we call Cobble Berms. So this very cobbly beach naturally shifts with storms, with waves, every day, every tide. And so instead of putting up something like a hardened seawall that would not absorb energy, it would reflect the energy of waves, can we instead increase the amount of these cobbles that roll and shift, create habitat, protect from erosion, and also provide great space for humans as well.
Cobble berms are placement of cobble-sized material ranging anywhere from 3 to 10 inches that are placed along a shoreline, against a coastal bank, at the base of a coastal bank or a coastal dune, intended to buffer wave energy, protect against erosion, and minimize coastal flooding. Cobble berms aren't for any location. If you have a very sandy beach, for example, you wouldn't want to necessarily put a bunch of cobble on that beach because that's not what's naturally there. So you're trying to mimic the natural conditions and supplement and enhance what's there on the beachfront. Cobble beaches are mobile. They're not fixed in place. So as a storm interacts with a cobble beach, they're going to move. That is going to dissipate wave energy and move the cobbles around. Typically, these cobbles actually move landward as opposed to seaward. So in a normal beach setting, very sandy beach, sand will get eroded off and pulled seaward. In this case, in a cobble-based beach, the cobbles actually move landward as opposed to seaward. Traditional coastal engineering structures, seawalls, bulkheads, revetments are fixed in space. So a cobble berm will absorb the wave energy, where these more traditional coastal structures that are not allowed to move will reflect or redirect that wave energy, which sometimes can have detrimental impacts to the beach. So some of the research and monitoring data that we have collected has indicated that there's actually been an increase of species richness at these cobble berm locations as opposed to control sites. We've also seen no major ecological negative impacts so far at the monitoring sites that we're evaluating. For example, if there's a nearby salt marsh, has the cobble berm negatively impacted the density or extent of that salt marsh? These are things that we're learning more about and studying as part of this project.
These kinds of projects bring together not just human communities and different stakeholders, but also the habitat, the landscape, the wildlife themselves. All of our decisions are based on what exists and how the environment itself is responding. So we look towards nature, we look towards currents, beaches, winds and waves to tell us what works. And then there's also, it's very forward looking. So instead of saying we're going to build this wall and walk away from it, instead we're creating these dynamic places where we can watch long term as they shift and grow and change, and hopefully create a new culture of how we engage with our coastlines. Instead of viewing the ocean as something that's dangerous or something that we need to fight against, it's something we can live with, we can thrive alongside. So it's really cool to see both this shift in the engineering field, as well as hopefully a shift in how we feel and address these different challenges that are coming our way.